Okay, so get ready to put your math skills to work to solve this interesting little math word problem. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and read the problem. It is the following. You need 64 meters to fence a rectangular garden. The length is 4 more than the width. What are the dimensions of the garden? Okay, so that is the question, and what we mean by dimensions is the length and width. So that is the question. Feel free to use a calculator, but if you can figure this out, go ahead and put your answer into the comment section. I'll show you the correct answer in just 1 second. Then, of course, I will solve this problem step by step. But before we get started, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is John, and I have been teaching middle and high school math for decades. And if you need help learning math, well, check out my math help program at tcmathacademy.com. You can find a link to that in the description below. And if this video helps you out, or if you just enjoy this content, make sure to like and subscribe, as that definitely helps me out. All right, so let's go ahead and take one more look at this question before we see the answer. So we need 64 meters to fence a rectangular garden, right? So we got all these critters, maybe rabbits coming in, eating our carrots, whatever the case we're trying to garden. So we need 64 meters to basically fence in the entire rectangular garden. Now the length of this garden is 4 more than the width. And the question is, what are the dimensions, i.e. what are the length and width of the garden? Okay, so hopefully everyone understands the question. Now let's go ahead and see the answer. The correct answer is 14 by 18 meters. That is the dimension or the length and width of this garden. Okay, so how did you do? Well, if you got this right, let's celebrate by giving you a nice little happy face and A plus a 100% and multiple stars. So you can tell your friends and family that you know a thing or two about rectangles and perimeter. Because really this is what this problem boils down to is we have to consider the perimeter because the perimeter or the total sum distance around this rectangle needs to be 64 meters because that's the requirements to fence in around this rectangular garden. Now, of course, we need to consider the rest of this information, and we will be using a bit of algebra. So don't panic. I don't like to say that these problems are algebra word problems because people are like, algebra word problems, I'm not even going to try this. I was terrible in algebra. Well, listen, some of you could have reasoned through this problem without even using algebra. Right, so never sell yourself short on trying to figure out a problem, but algebra is a tool. It's a math tool, and you want to kind of make friends with it. And there's no need to be afraid of algebra. You just have to simply learn the subject. And if you are confused about how to solve this problem, well, let's get into this solution. You'll look like this person in a couple of minutes. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first things first. First, we have a math word problem. Now, of course, I could have said, hey, this is an algebra word problem, but whether it's an algebra word problem, geometry word problem, trigonometry, calculus, or just basic math, it's a math word problem. Now, a word problem, okay, I kind of have to watch my pronunciation there, word problem, is nothing more than an application of, mathematics. It's the reason why we learn math is to solve problems. Now, word problems are effectively a description of real world situations where, hey, we want to use math to figure out some sort of solution to a particular problem. So, a lot of people don't like to do math word problems, but really this is the whole reason, again, why you want to learn math, i.e. to solve problems. But before you can solve anything, you need to understand the problem. And that's why I really emphasize something called the rule of three, which is to read the problem at minimum 3 times before you start doing anything. Even though you understand what's going on, you're like, yes, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I know we got a rectangular garden and I want to find the dimensions of it. I don't need to read this 10 times to understand. Well, I get that, but here's the thing. Your brain still needs a little bit of time to kick in and absorb the information. And plus, as you reflect on it, you kind of think about, well, what are some other problems I've done like this? What's the main concepts? How do I want to approach this? Again, be patient with the process, okay? It's really, really important habit to get into. But once you've done that, And I kind of stress this point. A lot of you are saying, "Boy, you are redundant, Mr. YouTube Math Man. You always talk about this Rule 3. You take so much time." Well, let's guess what? I don't know if you are new to my channel and if this is the first time ever watching one of my videos. So I always like to review some of these basic concepts that others of you already know. All right, now once you've read the problem and understand the question, you want to try to model the information. Now, of course, if you can visually model it, that's always best because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And if you can see the problem or see the situation, oftentimes you can see the solution as well. And of course, here is a perfect chance for us to use our basic art skills. So it's probably a good idea for us to kind of maybe sketch out some sort of rectangular garden and then kind of put some information in there and figure out what's going on. Now, I'm going to be using algebra here because we have some unknown values. Now, what are the unknown values? Well, namely, it's the dimensions, right? We don't know what the length and width are equal to. So we need to consider using variables, okay? Now, a variable represents an unknown value. Now, you have to be careful here because some of you might be saying, well, we could have one variable like x represent the length and maybe another variable like y represent the width. Well, you have to be careful because you don't want to have two variables in an algebra situation. You really want to use the least amount of variables. And here we can get away with one variable because there's a relationship between the length and the width. But of course, this is much easier to actually see. So let's go ahead and model this information. Okay, so let's draw a lovely little rectangular garden. And of course, we have our lovely beets in here, our carrots, all this stuff that everyone should be eating. And if you don't like vegetables, you really need to warm up to them. They're very, very healthy for you. But anyways, here's our garden. And of course, we want to, prevent stuff from getting in here. So here is our fence. Now, it's a rectangular fence, meaning that, i.e., this is a rectangle. So it's probably a smart thing to review. What is a rectangle? Well, the corners are obviously, well, I don't want to say obviously because maybe some of you forgot, they're 90 degrees. But the big kind of important part here is that opposite sides are congruent. So the width here is the same thing as the width here, and the length over here is the same thing as the length over here. Now you can see I already have some information, but you can't really do this problem unless you understand what a rectangle is. It's a four-sided polygon or a quadrilateral where opposite sides are congruent, yada, yada, yada. But again, I'm assuming that most of you, understand, hey, a rectangle, the opposite sides are the same, dimension, right? Same. The length over here is going to be the same as the length over here, and the width over here is the same as the width over there. Now, let's get back to this variable stuff. We don't know the width and we don't know the length. So we need to think about where we could assign a variable. So I decided to let x, and I'll just kind of define this right here, let x equal the width of this rectangle, okay? So if x is the width and the length is 4 more than the width, you have to be very careful here. So if the width is x, the length is 4 more, okay, than the width. So let's just kind of quickly review. So if you have x, 4 more than x is x plus 4, okay? That is 4 more, well, let's just actually kind of do something different. So if I have the width, 4 more than the width is the width plus 4, not 4 times w, okay? Or 4 times the width, all right? This is 4 times the width, all right? So if you have 4 times the width, that you would have the expression 4w. So if you wrote 4w, well, you just translated this, incorrectly. And when you learn algebra, okay, one of the first skills you learn is how to translate verbal phrases into algebraic expressions, because obviously we use this all the time when we're solving word problems. Okay, so again, 4 more than the width. This is in fact the length, and here x is the width. Okay, so now we have our rectangle. It has dimensions x and x plus 4. And because we are talking about meters, if you kind of, let's go back to the problem right here. we need 64 meters. The units of measure here will be in meters, and that's a little detail that we can kind of take care of at the end of this problem, but you still need to take care of the proper units of measure. All right, so now what do we do? Well, we have some variables here. We can't do anything here about finding out what x is equal to unless we build ourselves an equation. So that's the next step in the process of basically when you have an algebra word problem or a math word problem, you want to model the information. And if we're using algebra, we're going to go ahead and define what the variables are equal to, but we can't solve for a variable or variables unless we can build an equation for the information in the problem. And this is going to be pretty easy because this part of the problem right here is our rectangle with the dimensions x and x plus 4. So this part of the problem is you need 64 meters to fence a rectangular garden. So what does that imply? Well, it implies that we want, the entire some distance around that rectangular garden has to be 64 meters, right? That's what we need. We need 64 meters to put the fence here, 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 and here, so the sum total is 64 meters. Well, what concept is that? Well, that's the concept of perimeter, right? So the perimeter is a sum total around some sort of figure, like a rectangle or a triangle or whatever the case might be. All right, so effectively here, the perimeter is 64 meters. Now, how could I calculate the perimeter of this rectangle? Well, we can take this side, okay, this length, and then we'll add it to this side, and we know that this side right here is the same as this. So this is x plus 4, and then we can add it to x because x over here, the width here is obviously the same width here. So if we add all this stuff algebraically, this is going to be equal to the perimeter, which is 64 meters, and this is our equation. So hopefully most of you are saying, oh yes, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I see where you're going with this. Well, that is fantastic. So let's go ahead and actually clean this up and write this as an actual formal equation. All right, so let's go ahead again and define the perimeter of our rectangle and set this equal to 64 meters because that's how much fence we need to go around this rectangular garden. So instead of going x plus x and x plus 4 plus x plus 4, we could write it out this way. Well, we have x here and we also have x here, so that will be the same thing as 2x. And then over here, we have x plus 4 and x plus 4 here. So together we have 2 times x plus 4. Now, if you wanted to write this out as x plus 4 plus x plus x plus 4, that's perfectly fine as well. It just takes a little bit more room, but nevertheless, whether you did it this way or this way, it means the same thing. All right, so this is the perimeter of our rectangle, right, where the length is 4 more than the width, and the perimeter is equal to 64 meters, right? So that's how much we need to go around this particular rectangle. So at this point, what we need to do is get ready to solve this equation. So our brain kind of shifts and said, all right, I have to focus now on solving this lovely algebraic one variable linear equation. All right, now if you want to go ahead and try to solve this on your own, if you didn't figure this out, this would be a good little check for understanding just to see if you can solve this equation. But let's go ahead and take the next step, which of course is having you quickly subscribe to my YouTube channel. Now I want to interrupt this lovely math problem if I didn't need your support. You see, I'm not shy for asking for help, and neither should you. If you're like, I don't understand math, I'm bad at math. Math is so confusing, and I particularly don't like algebra because it makes my hair stand up. Well, I get that, but guess what? You can improve in math where you're like, yes, I can tackle any algebra word problem, but it requires work, effort, and instruction. And oftentimes you need to get the right help. Okay, so if you are like struggling, well, reach out, okay? Well, get yourself a math tutor, watch more of my videos, maybe enroll in one of my courses. You can find all my main courses, the links to those in the description. But it's not going to get better on your own, okay? But you can do something about it and you can improve, right? Now, For myself, I'm trying to improve my YouTube channel so I can reach more people so I can get their facial expressions to go from here to here. So it's no good to be a teacher unless I have students. So every person that subscribes to my channel, to me, it's like I gained a new student. So I really take that responsibility seriously and try to develop the best kind of content from basic math to advanced math and everything in between to help people be successful in math. So thanks for giving me a little bit of time to spiel on why I do what I do. And let's go ahead and wrap up this little discussion by you hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell so you get my latest videos. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to this problem. So now our kind of attention is on focusing on solving this equation, right? So we already read the problem, we have the right strategy, we understand why we're doing what we're doing. So now we're going to focus in on solving this equation. So we have 2x plus 2 times x plus 4 is equal to 64. So anytime you have a single variable linear equation and there's a situation where you have a number outside of parentheses where there's a sum or difference, you always want to start here. And this is going to be an application of something called the distributive property, which is a totally awesome property, but that is a separate discussion. So we're going to take this 2 and multiply by x. So 2 times x is 2x, and then 2 times 4 is 8. All right, so now we have this 2x plus 8 is equal to 64. So now we can combine these like terms, right? So I have 2x here, so in total I have 4x. So 4x plus 8 is equal to 64. Now what I want to do is get all my variables on the left-hand side, which of course they are, but we want to get all of our numbers on the right-hand side. So I have this 8 over here, so I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides of the equation. So remember the golden rule of algebra is whatever you do to one side of the equation, as long as you do it to the other side, it's perfectly legal. There's no problems there. So by subtracting 8 from both sides of the equation, I'm going to get 4x is equal to, these 8's go away right here, 64 minus 8 is 56. So now I'm down to this one-step equation, 4x is equal to 56. To solve for x, all I need to do is divide both sides of the equation by 4. 56 divided by 4 is 14. Okay, so at this point, a lot of students would be like, yay, I solved the problem. They're just so happy. They're like, yes, I was able to do it. That was a lot of work, but I'm all done. And then they'll just kind of turn in x is equal to 14. No, you're not done, okay? So don't celebrate yet because we still have to answer the question. And the question is, what is the dimensions of this rectangle? All right, so we know that x is equal to 14, and we have to go back to our lovely little picture here. So remember our rectangle, our rectangular garden, the dimensions is x and x plus 4. All right, so the width is 14, okay, but specifically 14 meters. Remember, the perimeter was 64 meters, so put in those units of measure. That is not a trivial detail. And so if the width is 14 meters, the length is x plus 4. Now that we know that x is 14, that's 14 plus 4, which is 18 or 18 meters. Okay, so in terms of level of difficulty, this problem is pretty simple, but it's a pretty classic type of algebra problem. You're definitely going to see perimeter problems. They're, again, very, very common. And if you are trying to get better at algebra and algebra word problems, there's certain types of problems that you'll see over and over again. Area problems, perimeter problems, rate, distance, motion problems, mixture problems, on and on and on. So if you master these variety of prompts, I would say, just off the top of my head, like 5 to 10 different type of standard type of algebra word prompts, then you have a frame of reference to, take on other problems that are similar to those, okay? So, you shouldn't read a problem like this if are studying algebra, like, I totally never saw a problem like this. I have no idea what to do. No, you should have always some sort of like, oh, this problem is kind of like a problem I did before. And that's important because you can kind of pull up other strategies from previous problems that you solved. So You can't get better at doing algebra word problems unless you have the underlying math skills, and then you just got to practice, practice, practice. Now, if you need to get better at algebra, okay, you absolutely need to check out my algebra courses. I have pre-algebra, algebra 1, algebra 2. You'll find links to all those in the description. If you, are like, hey, Mr. YouTube Math Man, I just need to learn basic math. I'm not there yet. Well, then check out my Math Foundations course. That's a little mini course on basic math, or my Math Skills Rebuilder course. Those courses are for those of you that are not students, but you just are interested in rebuilding your math skills. All right, so with all that being said, I definitely wish you all the best in your mathematics adventures. Thank you for your time and have a great day.